here at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis for a Walker Dialogue with Chloe Zhao. As the cinema is still closed due to the ongoing COVID pandemic, this will be a virtual dialogue with our guest joining from California. We will discuss her approach to humanist filmmaking at this dynamic moment in her career. Chloe Zhao was born in Beijing, China. After moving to the United States, she attended Mount Holyoke College and then continued her education in the graduate program in film production at New York University. As writer and director, Chloe will discuss her experimental approach to storytelling, combining personal stories with fictionalized characters. Her first feature film, Songs My Brothers Taught Me, was shot on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota and premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 2015. It also went on to screen at the Cannes Film Festival's Directors Fortnight and received a nomination for Best First Feature by the Film Independent Spirit Awards. I was pleased to show the film here at the Walker Cinema in 2016. Her second feature, The Rider, a contemporary Western drama, premiered at the Cannes Film Festival as well in 2017 and won the Art Cinema Award. Her current film is Nomadland, a road movie set in the American West. Chloe directs acclaimed actor Frances McDormand, who plays Van Dweller Fern, a displaced woman on a solitary quest for happiness following the loss of a life she once lived. Recently released via streaming and also in theaters as they reopen across the country, Nomadland has won numerous awards. The film premiered at the Venice Film Festival and played many others, including Toronto and New York, and even in the Telluride Film Festival's drive-in movie screening, as adaptations were made to present films during this year of virtual festivals. Chloe won Golden Globe Awards for Best Picture and Best Director. The film is also nominated for Film Independent Spirit Awards and has been nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Director. Chloe is now in production with Marvel Studios as writer and director of Eternals, to be released in November 2021. I'm Cheryl Mosley, former senior curator of Moving Image at the Walker Art Center, and I will be your host tonight, and I'm happy to be back. We will now begin our Walker Dialogue with Chloe Zhao. It was just a year ago that everything sort of shut down and due to the pandemic, and I was on this stage for the last time in the Walker Cinema to introduce this film series honoring women with vision. So it's really a thrill to be here for a virtual dialogue with a true woman of vision, Chloe Zhao. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. And I know, Nomad is now showing, streaming in some cinemas, and you've won many awards already. And plus this week, on Monday, there were nominations for 6 Oscars, including Best Picture, Director, Film Editing, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Actress, Frances McDormand, and Best Cinematography for Joshua James Richard. So congratulations to all of you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. So today we're going to discuss your what I call a humanist approach to filmmaking at this dynamic moment in your career, with some clips from your first 3 films, and then we're going to take some questions also from the audience as well. So should we get started?
Sure, let's do
Okay.
it.
Well, let's start with your unique style of storytelling, combining personal stories with fictionalized characters. Do you have a sense of where did that come from? Where does that come from? Were you always a storyteller?
I think so. I think ever since I was a kid, I'm an only child, and my parents both worked a lot, and I spent a lot of time with novels and manga and comic books and always wrote little stories and drew manga when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I knew earlier on I wanted to tell stories for a living. I just wasn't sure what form made sense for me.
And then it seems like at some point you realized that filmmaking would become that creative path. When did you discover that?
I think it was, I tried almost everything, photography, music, painting, writing. And I think I'm very much a a master of none, a jack of all trades. And I find that being film directors, this is quite fitting because then you get to bring together a group of really, really talented people who are masters of their own craft. And then you just steer the ship. So
And you steer it
if I
very.
were great at drawing, I probably would become a manga artist, animator instead.
Well, we're glad you took this path. But were there filmmakers who, along the way, that inspired you, either from when you did your studies or maybe even growing up in China?
One Car Away, Happy Together was one of the first films that made me go, I feel like I'm feeling something that's beyond what's just on the surface. That's because who I am at that specific moment is making me feel that way. And the cinema itself isn't telling me how I should feel, but is bringing me into a world that I was able to walk the walk of the characters, and as a result getting to know myself better. And I think Happy Together was that film for me that really opened it up, the possibilities.
Well, it's an amazing film, an amazing filmmaker. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to get on to talking about your films. And your first film was Songs My Brothers Taught Me. And so I guess my question, first of all, is having lived in sort of urban areas, so you were coming from New York, but having, grown up in Beijing, why did you seek out and how did you connect with South Dakota?
I grew up mostly in big cities, Beijing, London, LA, New York. And I definitely felt it when I got to my late 20s that the lack of connection with the natural world and the natural rhythm is taking a toll on my body. I was living in New York at the time, not just body, I think soul, spirit as well. And I think naturally I gravitated towards the idea of going west and going to the middle of the country, not into a big city, but somewhere that I would know nothing about people's way of life, and they would have a very different pacing, um, a rhythm to the one I'm used to. And the image I saw from the photographer Aaron Huey, who walked across America with his dog and took a lot of incredible photographs. And he went to Pine Ridge and took a lot of photos. And whatever that was in that frame just called me, like called to me something special within those frames. And so I rented a car and I drove to South Dakota. And it's really one of those places that you either sort of drive through or you get out and never want to leave, and I think I was the second one.
Uh-huh. Well, you spent time there. That was really great. And you learned a lot about it. And again, it's,
Mm-hmm.
your style of storytelling where it's about real people acting in a narrative that reflects their lives. And so maybe you could tell us, I think I'd heard you'd spent about 4 years developing this, this film about the life on the Pine Ridge Reservation.
Yeah, I was there and started meeting people. And I think the first year I was only there for 3 months, and then 5, and then 8. And then I moved to Rapid City. So it's a slow departure from New York, which I lived for a decade. And yeah, just but I've always had an idea, even before my first trip, after just seeing videos of kids and looking at their lives and through things they themselves put online. I knew instinctually it was going to be about a story that explores the choice young people have to make to stay home or leave home, because that is a very universal story, especially for young kids in rural areas, feeling the pressure of going to the city, for opportunities, and where home, what does home mean to them?
Well, that's what is so amazing in this film, and so I want to show a first clip if we can. And it's actually two short clips. I put them back to back, and we'll go from one right into the other. And it starts with just a scene of the brother and sister and the closeness of sort of the sense of family, of course. And then the second part of it is where Johnny drives past the protests to the liquor store.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go to that now.
Iya.
Go. Enggak.
Yeehaw. Oh.
Au.
Oh.
Whoa.
You drop me, I'll kick you.
No, you won't. I'm gonna drop you then.
Gosh, no, I'm
Ready?
too nice. I'm too nice.
Ready?
No.
Gonna walk the white flag in honor of our women and our children. Our women and our children who say no to alcohol, who want to raise beautiful, strong Lakota families. Stand beside them and let them know that we support them in this struggle for sobriety for our people, for all those who passed away. So let's get ready. We'd like to ask the women and the children to stay up front, stay in the middle.
Got it?
Yeah, it's good.
You got that too?
So those two clips, I think, as we were just talking about before the clip, because it's so much about the family. There's so much connection to the family, and especially to that sister and brother. And of course, the title has the word brothers in it, so it feels like it expands into a much larger group of people as well. And of course, we know there are more children, interconnected in that family as well. So, I think you talked a little bit about that, but also as you're just saying, his plans to leave the reservation. I think as an audience member watching the film, it's like, is he going to stay or is he going to go? Could you talk, I guess, a little bit about, sort of a little more about that part of the film story that you told?
It's funny to see these clips, I have to say. It's been a long time since I've seen songs. It's funny because I just talked to Jay Sean a couple of days ago. And she came to visit when I was shooting Eternals in England. And to see her, going around London by herself and traveling and is pretty incredible. And John is a dad now.
Oh, wow.
He's a really good dad. So let's see them that young. Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, meeting those two were a huge part of why I was able to make that film. Johnny really, he inspired me so much just with his own struggles and the things that he deal with at that age. He was playing his age, and Jay Sean as well. She was turning 12 when we made the film. It's at that very delicate time between a girl and a young woman, so, and Johnny is between a young man to becoming a man. I think I guess I'm always quite attracted to characters that struggle with moral dilemmas, things that they're caught in an impossible choice. Their choice is very, very difficult to make. And I wanted the audience always to, up until the last minute, even when they have made the choice, feel bittersweet about that. I think I made 3 films
Exactly.
doing exactly the same thing. Because I find that in life, often the difficult choices that you make really defines, become a big part of defining who you are, but it's never feels like a triumph. It always feels like that's the choice I made and I'm going to just live by it every day. It's never that dramatic, be like, I won. I don't find that's to be life. And sometimes I think in movies, we tend to go there, feel good about it, but I don't often see it reflected. Maybe it's just my life and people I have around me.
Well, you have people around you also who very much trusted you, I think, with their story, because you were, again, you were sort of an outsider in the sense that you came there from New York and you're Chinese. And yet you were going to tell this story that represented the residents of Pine Ridge and represent the Lakota community. So there must have been this real sense of trust it feels from the making of it.
It's a community and a place are filled with very, very diverse individuals. I think sometimes it is because there isn't enough representation that come out of that community or enough films or resources that came out of it, and they were able to make enough films about that community. One film is sometimes seen to represent that community. I find that to be quite problematic because there should be many, many films made every year about Lakota people, about Native Americans. And so then it's really about them as unique individuals. And Johnny and Jay Sean are 2 very, very unique teenagers with their own personalities and their own struggles and their own pleasures and pains. And that's what I want to focus on, And so when you go into a community and once you break past that barrier, you start to get to know people as human beings, that they're not just telling you about the things that they would probably tell to a news crew when they pass by. They're actually telling you about their first love or, their football team, and their hopes and dreams that are very personal, that isn't just about a whole group of people. I think that's when I feel like I'm in. And that's actually at the same, exactly the same time that they also start trusting me.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'd like to just show one other very short clip from Songs, and it is really, I guess, with Jashawn learning something from another brother. And so we'll show this quick clip.
All right, let's pack up and get.
Why do you like 7 so much?
That there's way too many reasons. Way too many. 7 is the most influential and used number in the Bible, and it is our culture's most sacred and revered number. Crazy Horse said, everything all seemed to have ended at Wounded Knee. But it will all begin again with the 7th generation, And that's you.
Yeah, it's such a powerful movement forward and into the future for her. So I love that scene.
Well, again, I always felt it. This is almost nine years ago or something. I did have a lot of hope for the young people there. I felt, and then to Jay Sean again, she's teaching Lakota language at the Red Cloud High School. She's going to go to college, and she's traveled, and she's been in 2 other movies since, and she's traveled, and I'm so proud of her, and seeing that right now, I go, oh, good. Again, Travis, I'm like, gosh, Travis, you have to, the kind of collaboration you have with the non-professional actors you really have to allow them to be themselves, to give them the space. And Songs is the only film that I made without a script. And that's partially problematic when, especially once you get into the edit. But when we're on set, even more so than my other films, I heavily rely on them to be able to be themselves and be able to give us things that is going to feel profound and make sense for the film. So Travis was just full of that. So it's a blessing to have found him.
Well, I wanted to then say, this sort of moved on to your next film, The Rider, which is your second film, and it seemed like a very smooth transition from Songs. I mean, some of the same people are in it, it's some of the same area. So how did you move into making The Rider from after Songs?
Well, kind of exactly what I was saying just now. I felt it. I'm very proud of Songs for what it is, but as a filmmaker, when I because I was also one of the editors, and I realized that without a script, I was stretched too thin. When you work based on treatment, you really wanted to be ambitious. I was stretching. There's so many characters in the film, and as a result, the emotional arc of the brothers and sisters, Johnny and Jay Shang, I mean, I think it's there, but I was curious, can I let go of the crutch of, I needed to go as wide as I have to, and then just deeply focus on one person's very kind of seemingly small personal struggle. Just go deep as possible and do not allow myself to expand. I knew I wanted to do that. I had no idea what it's going to be. I knew I wanted to do something with the Lakota Cowboys, who I met. I find their stories quite interesting. And then I met Brady.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to show a clip right away from this because it's about the rodeo, of course. So I wanted to show a rodeo scene, and it's the one where Brady goes back, but he's not able to participate now because of his injury, but he attends. So let's go to that clip next. Thank you.
He's got an 8-second whistle. He can beat South Dakota. He's safe on the ground. Put your hands together for Tanner Longdew.
Rodeo really was his way of life, and so this story, I guess, how did this story of losing one's dream reflect sort of a modern version maybe of the Western for the rodeo lifestyle for Brady and of course also for Lane?
By the way, it's funny that you had two clips from each of the films that we shot on day one. That's just the curse of being a filmmaker. All I can see is that, oh boy, we were green on that day. I knew it was going to be Brady because I met him and I knew it doesn't matter what story it is. I knew he was going to be the lead, and we spent a good year trying to figure out what that story is until he got injured. So not only have I gotten to know him, I had gone to anywhere from Deadwood to Denver, a big rodeo. Seeing him trying to live his dream. And then one day his dad calls me and said, oh, he got injured really badly, so the story really came to us, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Well, even just seeing that little clip of the rodeo of how it looks so dangerous. I mean, they're riding bulls. I mean, and they're doing this thing. So I imagine that there is. And I think there's a line in the film where it says, like, I've had 10 concussions. If I were in the NFL, they probably wouldn't let me play anymore. But there's just so much of what happened. And so, but it becomes such a touching story because of, as I said, his sort of loss of a dream and how he works to get back onto it again. I remember, just was thinking about this because when the film had its premiere at Cannes, and I remember this was where I saw it, and I remember there were a number of the cowboys there with you with their hats and walking down the Croisette and being in the cinema with you. It was so exciting that they were sort of such a part of the film, that they also were a part of sort of showing it to the audience. And I even mentioned it before we mentioned Telluride, and I think you also brought it there. And of course, that's Colorado, so it's closer. I think even Lane was able to come in his wheelchair to be at that screening, so that was very, very exciting.
Yes, that was definitely one of my favorite moments, top 3 in my career so far was that day. And Werner actually did the introduction for the film, and the way he talked about Lane, it was just, it
was very, very powerful. I was glad to be there. Well, let's look at one more clip because this is also includes the landscape, which we've been seeing in your films a bit. But this is when Brady gets back on his horse for the first time, but it's also, of course, the last time because, as we know, that the horse was just sold. We'll look at that clip.
God, I just ask you to take care of Gus on his travels, Lord. Just be with him all the time and protect him. Keep him safe, God. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
It's really about healing in a way because, of course, this is his beginning to take the next step, get back on his horse. But maybe you could talk a little bit about directing this scene. I mean, it feels like Horst, of course, is one of the characters as well, even the way he looks at the camera and is very very involved in the making
Talks a
of
lot
that
of
scene.
talk a lot of shaking of the gray while Brady is trying to be emotional in the scene. We're just like shaking a bunch of things, trying to get Mooney to look at us. Gus is the horse that actually played Gus, the real life Gus actually played Apollo, the horse
Okay.
that passed away. The real Apollo passed away. And Gus is Brady's childhood horse. It's the one horse that he would never sell, right? And Gus is still with him, but we got Mooney to play Gus because we knew we were going to have him ride at the first light of the day, and Gus is a brown horse, and we worry how much that's going to show against the landscape, so we chose Mooney. That scene took 3 days to shoot. So because we can only shoot in the last 20 minutes that light, right, in the blue, and before we lose light. And so it was that important for me to carve out time like that, because I feel like my characters are always rebirthing, like they're always dying and being reborn throughout the movie, their identity. And that's why filming at the changing of the day, the time when things are going away and coming back, and in those transitional time is really important. And also we wanted the audience to really feel what it's like to ride across the plains in that 20 minutes in the morning. And in those moments is what made Brady choose to risk his life to maintain this lifestyle. And he told me what the first time he wrote Gus after his surgery was really coming back really early in the morning from a long drive. And then he was going to go into his house, and then he just saw Gus standing there, and it was not even no light yet. And then he just felt like Gus was waiting for him, and he had to just do it. So we wanted to recreate that experience.
Well, it's very powerful, and it is about his starting to heal in many different ways, but taking that risk to getting back on the horse. Yeah.
And it's also, I think, the power of the cinematic language, because a scene like that, if we were just to record it, and just as if more just how it happens, it would just be like that and it's gone, right? The moment you get on the horse. So sometimes poetry, I think, can convey a sense of truth in a way that's even more truer than facts.
Absolutely. So should we move on to Nomadland?
Sure.
Yeah. This is also set in the West, but a little bit of a different approach, as it started with Jessica Bruder's journalistic book. And I understand I'd heard a story somewhere where Frances McDormand, in developing this, had saw the writer at Toronto and said, this is the director for Nomadland. And so maybe you could tell us about that and tell us about writing the screenplay as well.
Well, Jessica Bruder has done such an incredible job of capturing a time in this country when a whole way of life was disappearing for an entire generation of people. And she's interviewed so many people from all walks of life, but also documented places like Empire, Nevada, the disappearing of the company town. So basically, what she has done is the many years of my immersion on Pine Ridge for my first film, she's done that work for me. And so my job was to take really what's the essence, the spirit of her book isn't just the facts. For me, I felt the sense of loss when I read the book, the sense of losing a way of life, and the healing from that, the grief and the healing. So that to me is the heart. And then I wanted to create a character that can take us through all these incredible places Jessica had discovered, and the people, that someone who can have a strong enough emotional arc that can bind all these things together. Lessons I've learned from my first two films. So that's how Fern was created.
Yeah, because here's the story of Fern as she makes this transition from loss of her husband, of her home, of her town, Empire. And yet somehow you seem to take her journey and put it within, as you say, this very vibrant backdrop of nomad lifestyle. And so you really had this sort of very layered story of having both of them working very much together. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that process of layering it.
Yeah, I think to me, there's always two important layers for me in the story. There's a layer that was make this story specific, that details that you see that are very authentic. And I work very hard in all three films to try to maintain this kind of specificity. And for me, the more specific you get, the more universal it is, actually. It's not just a car, it's what brand of car. And, and so, but then there's another layer underneath is really the heart or soul of the movie. And that, to me, needs to be as universal as possible. So I think the combination of the two are very powerful for me.
Well, talking about a sort of a unique space, I'd like to take our first clip. I was looking at our first clip, and it's the one that's inside the van. So we'll go to that one.
Yes?
No. So the guy that had the van before, he just had a mattress in the back, but I didn't want to keep it that way. I wanted to build the bed up so I could have storage underneath. I got these storage drawers, one set in the front so I could get in them from the inside, and then another on the outside.
Very smart.
I thought so. You see that? This is my husband's old fishing box. I put this little latch on it, and then when I open it, the stopper holds it and creates more counter space. And then I keep my really nice stuff inside. My dishes that my dad gave me, he collected these, Linda May, from yard sales. And when I graduated from high school, he gave me the whole set.
Oh,
Isn't that great? Yeah, it's called Autumn Leaf. I don't have that many pieces with me, but you know.
What did you name your van?
Vanguard.
Oh, that is very strong.
She is.
Great. I love that it really shows the intimacy of the small space that Fern lives in. But you also, of course, had to film inside that small space. So you probably had to adapt to working so closely as you shot that as well. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that process.
Well, one thing that was really important to us was to give a sense of realism to the film. And we had the resources, the financial resources to build the van on the stage or to open the van up or pop the top out so the camera can get to a more aesthetically pleasing angle. I didn't have money for my first two films to do that. But as a result, what I learned is that there is a level of authenticity that come with these limitations, that if the audience are feeling that kind of claustrophobia, they actually believe they might just happen to be there, and in the film, and obviously that's not necessarily the only way to do it, but for a film, when you're trying to play make-believe with two very well-known actors and non-professional actors, you're trying to find that balance, try to let them coexist. It's even more crucial that you don't play those tricks on the audience. So the decision was to cram 5 crew members in that small space.
Well, it looked like Fern, or maybe I should say it looks like Frances McDormand really loved this van.
She does. Last time we were getting the van ready for the premiere, the Rose Bowl, I think her husband found her in the parking garage after hours and not coming upstairs. So, what are you doing? She was like drenched in sweat. She was cleaning it. She's like, you didn't clean it. I can't let people see Vanguard this way. He was like, stop cleaning. I think she was scrubbing it, trying to dust it. Yeah. You gotta, one thing I learned is that the pride that you take for your house, when people come visit, you gotta clean up. That kind of things don't go away just because you call a vehicle your home. If anything, there's more pride in it.
Absolutely. Well, let's take another clip of this as Fern is now driving this van and she goes to the RTR event, the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous.
And the odd thing is that we not only accept the tyranny of the dollar, the tyranny of the marketplace, we embrace it. We gladly throw the yoke of the tyranny of the dollar on and live by it our whole lives. I think of an analogy as a workhorse. The workhorse that is willing to work itself to death and then be put out to pasture. And that's what happens to so many of us. If society was throwing us away and sending us the workhorse out to the pasture, we workhorses had to gather together and take care of each other. And that's what this is all about. The way I see it is that the Titanic is sinking and economic times are changing. And so my goal is to get the lifeboats out and get as many people into the lifeboats as I can.
Oh, yeah. There's plenty.
Oh, yeah, you got plenty. Jump and shout.
Let you know. What's that?
This is vegan.
No, I'm a carnivore.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, though. Looks
Another
good.
carnivore?
I'm a carnivore. She's a carnivore.
Okay.
So Fern finds her community as she's on the road, and they become then the real characters. And so, as you were saying, just as you did in songs and in The Rider, they are equally sort of part of this and become such a firm foundation for Fern's journey. It's great to see this part.
Yeah.
As well. I have a quick little side question here too, though, because the RTR, of course, is about retired people, and now that I'm one of them, I am interested in that. But I also was very interested in how you added sort of the younger generation. We don't have a clip of this, but I don't know if you could talk a little bit about that scene with Derek.
Yeah, sure. I think Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, you could go at any age, really. I mean, obviously it started with a group of people that are Bob and Fern's age, but now the last year there were 10,000 people there.
Wow.
They have done like a camp separate, like the music camp. I think there's a lot of young kids partied a bit late into the night. I think the younger kids will naturally gather, the tradition of movement, of being on the road, that's, for me, that has always seemed to be a young person's thing, and I've seen a lot of road movies featuring young drifters, and that's what I was working on before friend contacted me with the book. And the road meant something very different for a young person than for a person who are in their 70s and 80s. And so Derek was very much that representation of that young person, what he is looking for beyond the horizon, that he calls the Western wind had pushed him to, he's been chasing that horizon ever since. That's how he would say it. Is really himself. He's really searching for himself. And he is just one of a kind. I think he right now is working on getting some land and then returning it into its ancestral state through different type of agricultural technique. I don't even know what they're called for. He told me all about it on Zoom. But I believe he's even getting to talk to to the legislators in the state to proposing this to them, and he has a lot of big ideas. When I first met him, I thought this is someone that walks straight out of a Walt Whitman poem. He doesn't feel like he belonged to this time, and that's what happens when you're out there a lot and you're not really being affected by the modern sort of a very conforming culture of the youth culture. I think he was very away from that, and as a result he become a very authentic person.
Yeah. Well, it was such a beautiful scene too, and it showed such a relationship between Fern and Derek, and with the reading of the poem, and just sort of bringing her into sort of an emotional state, because she feels like, Fern, you gave her a lot of opportunity. The story gave her a lot of opportunities to leave the nomad life. I mean, both her sister, or Dave's family offered her a home, but she really chose to stay on the road.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, obviously that is not to ignore that this should be a choice, not a necessity, because many of the people that I met on the road, they of Fern's age, they didn't start with a choice, right? They were forced out of the situation, or like Linda May said, she just didn't have other ways to live. And that is a big problem. Ideally, it should be a choice for them. They should say, hey, I want to live this lifestyle, instead of I have to when you get to that age. So that's that aside. That's a different issue we should definitely address. But many of them, because they stripped away all the previous identities of their sense of self, and now they have to figure out who are we now? Who are we, but what's in this van and what's beyond the horizon? So in a way, they come of age later in life, and to find themselves. And many of them decided, oh, actually, this is the constant movement is what I'm looking for various reasons. And then they choose this lifestyle. Chose.
And hopefully they'll be able to keep doing it. But let me ask you, we have some questions that are coming in from the audience, and if I could go to those as well. We'll take this first one, because it sort of is a second question about the same story. This comes in from Emma Seeley. She's a Walker member from St. Paul, Minnesota, and she asks, what was Fern searching for in Nomad Land, and do you think she found it?
Well, I think she is searching for a sense of who she is, and she has always been Bo's wife, someone's sister, someone's daughter, someone's neighbor, part of a very tight-knit community. And when that all went away, then who am I? She asks, and I don't think she necessarily found it, because you might never find it, but that's okay. I do think in the end, she is able to tell herself who she isn't, which is someone that belongs to that house. But even though she left the house behind, she still wore Bo's jacket. She will always be Bo's wife. And that love isn't going anywhere. You don't just move on. That simple. So I don't think it's a necessarily happy ending, but I think she made progress.
And it's a part of a story, so, we'll see what happens. The next question is from Kate Belvo from Pupowski, Minnesota. And she asks, at what moment in filming did you know that the great American West was a main character with so much to say in this film?
I think before I even started filming anything, just by being out there, I think that's what got me to stand still for a moment, was the landscape that kept me in South Dakota. I love the landscape in South Dakota. It isn't your typical postcard or screensaver landscape that we're all familiar with, but it's very ancestral. is very, very unique. It has, you've sensed that there is something, some spirit behind there. When you're standing on in the Badlands, it's not like any other place. So I think the landscape kept me there. And then when you put the camera on a place like that, it started to take shape and character on its own. It's now something that we can stop. It's like everywhere we looked, it is just so beautiful. And as time went on, we realized we have to try to tell stories. It isn't just about being beautiful. And then 2-3 films in, we started to think very carefully the time of the day, time of the year, weather, and what does that say about our characters.
Okay, we have another question that's just come up as well from Anne Landau. This is one who's has sent this in from China. And the question is, as a Chinese director and writer, how do you understand and direct such an amazing American story?
Well, in a way, I think I answered it earlier that to me, there's 2 levels, in storytelling for me. That first level where you be very specific, right? So even within the United States, even within one reservation, there's just diverse specificity. How do you say specificity?
Specificity?
Yes, it's a tough one. That you really, you want those moments. You either work with an incredible production designer, or you go into the real world and you find the world building that what make this story only happen here. And that to me is, in a way, what makes it relatable, because it's specific. But to answer that question, that second layer to me is, for me, I never think about it as an American story or a Chinese story. For me, that second layer is a human story. And I actually constantly use my friends and family back home, and I think about, would they feel something for this character? Would they relate to what this character's emotional arc is? Brady's losing home, losing dreams. John, whether I'm going to leave home or stay home, and Fern, could I heal from grief and loss? And these unique human stories, that's the second layer, is actually to go as universal as you can be with these stories.
Mm-hmm.
That answers the question.
I think that answers it very well, because it really is what it is. We do have another question or two. Is there a couple more questions? Oh, well, this one might lead into kind of a little bit of you to talk about what you're working on now. This comes in from Tristan Crawford from Minneapolis. And the question is, how would you describe the difference in working on Nomadland compared to Eternals?
Well, there's a lot of differences.
Well, we'd love to hear it.
Well, the thing is, what's interesting about Eternals is that I actually work with a really small group of core people, about 5, and that's it. And beyond that, on set, there's about 25 people, same as Nomadland, that I work with on day to day. And then the difference is, beyond that 25 people, there are hundreds of people that they are in their department. But from early on, I have said I need to feel that intimacy of that 25 people and that 5 people, and that's how they've conducted the shoot. So for me, in that sense, it's not that different. The biggest difference, I would say, is the involvement of visual effects,
Mm-hmm.
of CGI, and which really call back to my first love, which is manga and comic book and anime. So it is to imagine things that aren't there. And that opened a whole new, just endless possibility of storytelling for me. And so that, I would say, that's the biggest difference, is that the film doesn't stop when we wrap picture. meaning like there's not in the can, that's all I have to work with, and I'm editing those into a story. That's what I'm used to, because most of the films that I made, I either can't afford it or can't really logistically do reshoots. Now it's not about reshoots, it's about I can create so many more shots, like so many more ideas. So it's exciting in that way.
So do you think in a way that it's sort of like creating things that are more of your ideas? I mean, as you say, you could draw it, it comes from manga, it comes from another way of working. When you were talking at the beginning and you were talking about, even when you were at home, a child at home and drawing and reading and participating in this, it feels like that's a discovery that sort of comes from another place than walking out into the Badlands and seeing the space. It feels like there's just two different approaches to really working. One maybe is more with this visualization in a different way.
Yeah, and the two has to work together, and my job is to make sure what we captured in the real world and what we are creating in the imaginary world has to coexist into a movie. It has to feel seamless. At the same time, never let the imagination be limited either. Sometimes this is such a confusing way to say it, but sometimes to not have limitation is to have limitation. It's hard to explain this, is that you have to set some boundaries. Once those boundaries are clear, then the possibility is endless.
Well, it sounds exciting to have endless possibilities to be working with. Do you have ideas for even? I know you're in the throes of it right now. You're in post-production, I understand, and in working on this film, and it's scheduled to come out in November of 2021. I heard. So it must be pretty exciting to be so involved in it right at this moment when everything else is sort of going on with the award ceremonies coming up and all of the other pieces of it. Does it give you a stability or a place to work, I guess, during this time?
It definitely does. It does. I don't really have time to overthink of things and to get too excited about anything, because there is just 24/7 meetings and decisions to make, and they're all things that I'm so excited to be part of. So it actually took me away from all the awards things, and which could get overwhelming.
This is great, though, that you have this. It's so wonderful. We really look forward to seeing it, of course. And I don't know if you have either other ideas of what you're going to do after that, or if you want to talk about any of that yet, or if you're just in the throes of all of this moment right now.
Well, I don't think it's a secret that I'm working on a Dracula movie for Universal, and so would be a very it's a futuristic sci-fi Western take on Dracula, and I'm excited about that. I'm definitely I had learned a lot from doing Nomadland and Eternals side by side, something small, intimate, and something very, very big, and it actually balance each other very well. So I'm curious if I could do that again, maybe not as close as these two have been. But I definitely want to try that again. So
yeah, take a little breathing space and go back out and travel around and then come back and work again.
I think so, yes.
Yeah. Well, there was another little group of questions that came in as well that I would ask, because it was just from, I think, probably people wanting to get into sort of beginning filmmakers and wondering if you have any advice for people who are getting started in this at this time for you.
I think it's important, because I write and direct and also edit, but actually I would say the most important thing I've done is producing. I produced all my 3 films, and the decisions I've made as a producer earlier on is I'm asking myself, is what I'm making, is this specific thing I'm doing that no one else is? It's a very important thing that you want to ask, because if you're not lucky enough to know a lot of people or have a lot of money and resources, then you have to say, am I putting the best thing on screen? Am I making, if I only have like $100,000 to make a movie, which is how much we had to make my first film, and the second film was 80 grand.
Wow.
So you look at that, you go, but we have time. You know, we can choose our own schedules. We can do things that people with a million budget or 10 million budget may not be able to do. You really have to think about, in the world where there's so many things people can pay their attention to, why should they pay their attention to your film? At the same time, you have to truly love your subject matter and want to tell that story. But I'm lying if I just tell you to follow your passion. You also, because filmmaking is a dialogue to me, you have to think about, is this a topic that people will want to discuss with you? You know, I think that's something that people now might not say to someone who just starting, because you want them to just follow their passion and their, but for me, it's also curiosity, and also asking yourself, why would people come to see this film?
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds like really good advice, because and something that you did, especially when you were saying how much time you spent, you know, working on and on songs, and how it really was something that your curiosity drove you to there, and then you learned so much from it and were able to make that such a powerful story.
And we could have gone there and tried very hard to make certain type of stories that that felt maybe easier for people to digest, but it would just be like any other film that's made there. But instinctually, all of us felt, well, we would like the people there to be able to play a version of themselves, because I want to see that. Like, I want to see someone like Johnny and Jay Sean on screen. I want to hear the way they speak. I want them to tell us their stories. And I just know that if I felt that desire, someone else is going to feel similarly. It might not be a popular choice. It might not be like a lot of people suddenly go, oh, wow, like this film has this actor in it, or this budget, or shot a certain way. But I promise you, if you make those choices really authentically, it might take a little bit longer, but you will attract the right people into your lives.
Mm-hmm. And you did, because those stories became so well told and so beautiful, and it touched so many people. And you were able to make this journey, you know, first through the first 3 films that we really talked about today, and now into this a whole new realm. You know, we're really, I'm so excited. I know, I think I've been asking a lot of the questions, but I wonder if there's anything you wanted to comment about before we wrap up, if there's any other topics or any other comments that you would like to make about either your career so far, or, you know, your life that you're involved with, or anything that you would like to say.
I don't know. I think the feeling of time, you know, I think as an artist, sometimes the industry make you feel like right here, right now, that's all it matters.
Mm-hmm.
And but not really, you know. Like this conversation, for example, that you've done with many filmmakers, you look back at all the films they've made. We're really in it for the long game, and the timelessness of that's kind of work you want to put out that can stand the test of time. And for me, Nomadland is really the writer and songs and Nomadland. I see them very connected with each other. Yeah, so I don't know what I am trying to say, except maybe still answering that person's question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it really is, I guess, a time also for watching these films, because we've had the opportunity to watch them, and especially Nomadland, in this time where we were all kind of in our homes. I mean, I felt a little bit like I wasn't in a van, but I wasn't in a, you know, I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't doing other things. I was sort of feeling this new comfort of being inside of a space that really evolved this year. And I think one of the things that was connected so deeply, I guess, with Nomadland was just this, you know, feeling that we're all going through this past year of pandemic as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone had felt suddenly. I mean, unfortunately, many have had their sense of identity taken away from them, whether it's a business and their loved ones, and their sense of self and being someone who's sociable and like to be around people. There's many things I think we shed in the last year, and I think we're very grateful that the film could be a solace to some, to watch someone else going through that process, and then have to rise up again and sort of take one step at a time, doing laundry, making breakfast, just get through one day at a time. I had a filmmaker that I deeply respect said to me, I just loved watching Fern doing laundry. I didn't understand why until I made breakfast in the morning. I go, good job. Things that we take for granted before we were just speeding through life, and realize those little triumphs in life is worth celebrating.
Mm-hmm. Well, that really is a celebration to see. I love the laundry scene too. That's why I included it at the front end of that clip, just because just another scene in the laundry, and it was so great. And doing the puzzles and all of the things that they were working on with Linda May, that was great. Well, just before we sort of head off here, I just want to thank you so much, of course, for doing this and participating and coming out and spending some time with us today. Wishing you lots of luck on everything that as it goes forward. It was great to hear about Dracula. I just actually know about that, so it's great to hear about that next step in your life as well. So it's been terrific. I really want to thank also, of course, all of the people who are watching from home. And also just to say, as we were talking about, we celebrated the 30th anniversary of this program last year, and we did an online archive, and it is of the Dialogue series, and it's on the Walker website. So if you want to watch that, please go ahead and do that. You can see all the 60 guests or so who have been here so far. But I was so glad that you could join us as we moved, you at home could join us as we moved into the future with Chloe Zhao into the 31st year. So that's really, really exciting. And then I want to thank you, Chloe. So we'll let you get back to work on this exciting new film. And I guess rather than, even saying goodbye, we're just going to say, see you down the road.
See you down the road.
See you down the road. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. So I'm Cheryl Mosley. I'm saying goodbye from the Walker Art Center. So thank you all for being with us tonight. Thank you.